Hi everyone, it's AJ with North Capital Mortgage, and today we want to cover cash out refinance or home equity line of credit. Which is the better option for you? Let's review. So as a brief overview, today we want to understand what is a cash out refinance? What is a home equity line of credit? We want to be able to compare and contrast the two. And then we want to understand factors to consider and how to decide which is the best option. So first, what is a cash out refinance? Well, a cash out refinance is a loan that will replace your existing home loan with one that is larger than the amount that you currently owe, and you will take difference in cash. So this will be, again, a new loan. It's going to have a new interest rate, a new 30-year term, and a new monthly payment. So as an example, we want to look here at a property that is worth $500,000. You've got a $200,000 loan at 6% rate, and your principal interest payment is $1,199. When you refinance this property, you want to take out $175,000 of equity. Your new loan will be $375,000. Okay, you're going to have 25% equity remaining at the 500K value, and your interest rate is going to be a little bit higher because cash out refinance rates are going to be higher than your standard rate. So at 7%, your new payment is going to be $2,494, roughly $1,300 more than your previous payment to acquire that $175,000 cash out. When we look at a HELOC, we want to understand that a home equity line of credit is a revolving line of credit. It allows you to borrow against the equity in your home, very similar to how a credit card works, except this is secured against the property of your home. So you will have a credit limit, which will be based on the value of your home. And typically you can go up to roughly 90% of the value of your home, minus your existing mortgage balance, of course. You're going to start with the draw period. This is usually going to be about 10 years for your line of credit. And during this 10-year period, you can borrow, you can repay, and you can reborrow and repay as needed. And you're only going to be paying interest on what is drawn at the time. After your repayment or after your draw period, you're going to go into what's called a repayment period. So whatever balance you have remaining, it'll either be 10 to 20 years, depending on the loan parameters, which you will pay a fully amortized payment, principal and interest, over the term of the repayment period. The thing about line of credits is you're not going to have a fixed rate like you would on a 30-year conventional loan. You're going to have a variable interest rate. So depending on what's going on in the market, your interest rate could go up or it can go down. And usually it will adjust 1 to 2 times a year. And generally you will also have a cap, but that cap could be substantially higher than what your starting interest rate was. So there is the potential over time that your payments could get out of hand potentially. And again, this one's going to be added as a second mortgage behind your first. Cash out refinance, you keep your one loan on a line of credit, you're going to have your original loan plus the line of credit as a second. Line of credit example, we'll start with that same $200,000 loan at 6%. Principal and interest payment, $1,199. You add $175,000 line of credit, fully drawn at about 9.5%. That payment, interest only payment on a line of credit during the draw period, $1,385. So your total for 2 payments paid to two different institutions is going to be about $2,584, a payment increase of about $1,385. So we want to look at cash out refinance pros and cons. Some of the pros versus a line of credit, you're going to have a lower interest rate than a line of credit. You're going to consolidate your debt into one loan, which means you're going to have one payment. You will have fixed 30-year payments, will not fluctuate, and your payments will be fully amortized. That means you're paying principal and interest every month. Some of the cons, a full refinance is required, so it's going to take longer to do that transaction. You will have higher closing costs, roughly 2 to 4%. It's going to be a new mortgage, so you're going to recast your amortization, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. If your current rate is low, if you have one of those 3% interest rates, your new rate will obviously be much higher. Line of credit, pros and cons. You are going to be able to access only the cash you need on a line of credit, which means you're only going to be paying interest at the time for what's drawn on the line. You will have interest-only payments that will give you better cash flow, lower closing costs to get a line of credit. You can keep your first lien if you have that low payment, if you have one of those 3% interest rates. And if the first lien is aged, you can maintain your amortization. We're going to talk about that on one of the next slides coming up. Some of the cons: higher interest rates on a line of credit. Rates are variable, so you're going to have payment fluctuation, which those payments could become excessive, and you're going to have to pay to a second institution. It's not going to be just paid to one place. Factors to consider when choosing between the two: whether you have long-term or short-term debt. This, I believe, is important. If you're financing a long-term debt, especially if it's got higher interest rates, it may be better to choose a cash-out refinance, especially if your cash-out refinance rate is substantially lower than some of the rates you're paying on the long-term debt. If you're looking for short-term debt, if you just need $50,000 or $100,000 and you know you're going to be able to pay it back within a year or so, definitely a line of credit is something you may want to consider. How long have I had my current mortgage? Again, amortization schedule is going to play a factor. We're going to talk about that. Blended rate calculation. This is an interesting variable to consider. We're going to talk about that. And then obviously personal preference. So amortization matters. So when we look at how payments change over the life of a 30-year loan, we definitely want to consider that when deciding on a cash out refinance or a home equity line of credit. As the term of your mortgage progresses, a larger share of your monthly payment goes towards paying down the principal until the loan is paid in full at the end of your term. So what that means is on a mortgage, you are not paying the exact amount of principal and the exact amount of interest for every payment for the 30-year term. When you start your loan, the amount of interest on those payments is going to be substantially higher. So if we take a look at the principal and interest payments, you're going to pay about, on this loan, $500,000 loan, the principal and interest is going to be about $3,160. And in the first month, in June of 2025, if you took this loan out then, you're going to pay $452 of principal on that payment, and the interest is going to be about $2,700. And every month, your amount of principals that's going to be applied is going to be just a little bit more. In this case, it's going to be about $2 a month more. Fast forward to 2045, 20 years into the loan, you can see that now your monthly payment is going to go mostly towards principal. So what this means is if you are 15 or 20 or 25 years into your loan, you may prefer to opt for a home equity line of credit because you don't want to lose the amortization aging that you have. Blended rate calculation. This is another important variable to consider. So this is going to allow us to determine what the effective interest rate is for multiple loans. So if you decide to take out the line of credit, we're going to look at the first loan and its interest rate, as well as the line of credit and its interest rate, divided by the sum of the balances, and it's going to give you a blended rate. So first mortgage, $200K, 6%. Line of credit, $175,000, 9.5%. Your blended rate or effective rate is going to be 7.63% on that capital that you've acquired from your equity. And this is going to be a useful tool because it's going to allow you to understand where rates are in comparison to if you were to just take out a cash out refinance. If your blended rate calculation is substantially higher than the current cash out rates, you may consider just doing a cash out refinance. So which is best for me? The answer is it depends. Again, items that we definitely want to consider: blend rate, amortization schedule of your first lien, whether it's long or short-term debt that you need, what the current rates are in the market, and what your personal preference is. Everyone's scenario, everyone's situation is very different. So if you need assistance in making a determination on what may be best for you, give me a call. I'm always available to help. Again, AJ with North Capital Mortgage, 714-624-5151. Give me a call anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.